Namaskar. We have commenced the Kriya Yoga, the second chapter, Sadhana Pada, which begins with Kriya Yoga. And in the last session, I told you that Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi needs to be understood. Because we are going to have objective knowledge about Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi. We are used to a yoga which is for one and all. This is what is the state of affairs today. That you should be interested to do yoga and then you will get your yoga. So as I have often said, there is something for yoga, there is something in yoga for us to take it. Although yoga as such is not meant for all of us. Yoga is like sky, and therefore there is something for us to get out of yoga. And then we want to get out of yoga what we want, what we need. And therefore we are under that influence and that kind of thought that yoga is for one and all. This is typical of our times. There was a time when yoga was not meant for everyone. However, today there is total turnaround, and yoga is projected, yoga is propagated, advocated with this kind of idea that yoga is for one and all. And therefore, we are not aware of any qualification. And of course, commencement of yoga has no qualification, as even deemed by Patanjali's scheme of things. But Kriya Yoga is a level, and Kriya Yoga classically comes after Ashtanga Yoga, sufficiently imbibed, inculcated, practiced, and acquired, and actualized. It is a second step after Ashtanga Yoga, which is the primary course, preliminary course, commencement course. And you should recall that today we have something called as pre-primary education. So if Ashtanga Yoga is primary, there is something pre-primary as well, so that we are on the track of classical yoga. The point is, Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi, with regards to both, the Kriya Yoga means there is some qualification acquired through Ashtanga Yoga. And Kriya Yogi is one who is qualified. After having got qualified, his pursuit goes on a next rung, and that is called Kriya Yoga, and he therefore is Kriya Yogi. Now the previous session we came to know about Kriya Yoga is composite of Gnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. And therefore it entails the understanding of Gnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, to really understand what is Karma Yoga. And we have to understand the Gnana Yogi, Karma Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, Bhakti Yogi, to understand what is the Kriya Yogi. To characterize the Kriya Yogi, we have to understand Gnana, Dhyana, Karma, Bhakti Yogi. To characterize Kriya Yoga, we have to understand Gnana, Dhyana, Karma, Bhakti Yoga. And therefore it becomes imperative that we have some basic knowledge of these yogas, which is a graduated level of yoga. So in Ashtanga Yoga you will trace the seeds of Gnana Yoga, and that you will find in Swadhyaya in a very pronounced way. Swadhyaya means swa adhyaya. Swadhyaya means self study and then study about the self. And Gnana Yoga is based on this study about the self and self study. And Swadhyaya aspects of Niyama puts the seed for such aspects in Ashtanga Yoga. And you should recall Swadhyaya is the Niyama coming after Shaucha, Santosha and Tapas. After the three niyamas comes the fourth niyama called Swadhyaya. And then subject matter of this Swadhyaya is, who am I? Whence am I? So from where have I come and where am I going and what is all around me? So this inquiry, philosophical inquiry, is the basis of Gnana Yoga. That's the foundation of Gnana Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga in its classical approach plants a seed of such Gnana. So inquiry about oneself. That is why, although we are selves, we never have inquiry about self. We want to know about all that is around us. We don't want to know what is within us and what are we ourselves. But in philosophical approach, in Paramartha, this inquiry becomes paramount, which a materialist doesn't give any importance. So, what is called as philosophy? And in philosophy, to know about oneself. Who am I? What am I? Whence am I? What is all this in me, about me, around me? Why is this all in, around me? So this inquiry is the infrastructural aspect of Gnana Yoga. So there is self-thought, thought about self, and we are self, as philosophy postulates, Yoga Darshanam postulates, Vedanta postulates. We are not body, we are not mind, but we are self. And this self is Nirakara, Nirguna, Avyakta, Ajanma, Avarana, Ajara, Amara. So the self is nominal, formless. And in our understanding, we have a form. We have the form in the form of physical body. It has shape, size, complexion, dimensions, etc. But that is not the self. We are not that. So, the Atma or the self is Nirakara, that is formless, Nirguna, doesn't have attributes, Avyakta, nominal, Ajanma, birthless, Amara, deathless. So also Avarana. So the Atma in Upanishads has been described thus. It doesn't say that you are what you think about you. And it tells us that you are not what you think about you. Because you say that you have caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature, condition, you have nama, rupa, you have form. So it is Wisdom of Upanishads tell us that we are not that. We think that we are that, but we are not that. So Gnana Yoga tells us about this reality. This Atma is birthless, deathless, decayless, diseaseless. It doesn't have thirst and hunger, but we have thirst and hunger. We have birth and death. We have disease and decay. But the Atma doesn't have it. Atma is immutable, aparanami. It is metaphysical, not physical. It is metaphysical, not psychological. So, the Atma is described in Adhyatma Shastra, Paramartha Shastra, Moksha Shastra. And we get the first piece of instruction about that, which is a big disillusionment for us about ourselves. And this comes in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verses 23, 24 and 25. These are very fascinating verses. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayanti apo, na shoshayati marutaha. So it says, this Atma cannot be pierced by weapons. It is incapable of being burnt by fire. No fire will burn the self. It is not capable of being wetted, dampened by water, nor it can be dried by wind, air, vayu. So it is not at all impacted, influenced by all these. That is what Bhagavad Gita tells us. Then, achedya ayam, adayya ayam, akledyo ayam, ashocha evacha, nitya sarvagata sthanu, achala, ayam sanatanaha. So, furthermore fascinating information and knowledge about it. Achedyaha, it cannot be cut into pieces. It cannot be divided. It cannot be divided into parts. It is indivisible. Adhyaha, it cannot be burnt. It cannot be parched. It cannot be heated. Akledyaha, it cannot be wetted and dampened. It cannot be dried out. It is not wet which can be dried, or it is not dry which can be wetted. And it is nitya, sarvagataha. So ourself is not just within ourself as Atma, it is nitya, it is eternal. That means it is beyond birth and death, and sarvagataha. The sthanuhu means steady, doesn't move. We move. Ourself doesn't move. We move from place to place, we move from condition to condition, but self doesn't move that way. Sthanuhu, steadied, absolutely steadied, immovable. Achalha, and ayam sanatanaha, it is ageless. So, our worldly knowledge will never tell us about these characteristics of ourselves. We all think that we are born and then we die. We are there during particular time and then we are not before that and we are not after our death. But it is eternal. Atma is eternal. Now this is quite a revelation which Adhyatma, Paramartha, Upanishads, Vedanta Sankhya, they give us. Bhagavad Gita is giving that to us now. Avyaktaha ayam achintyo ayam avikarya ayam uchyate. Tasmad evam viditva evam na anushochitum arhasi. So it is avyakta, nominal, achintya. It cannot be thought, it cannot be conceived, it cannot be construed, it cannot be thought matter because it is substrate of all thinking. Avikarya, it is avikari, it is immutable. Whereas we have these mutations, sometimes we are angry, sometimes we are passionate, sometimes we are stupid, sometimes you are dull, sometimes we are torpid, sometimes we are sorrowed, sometimes we are delighted. So these changes are taking place. The mutation is always there in us, in the ephemeral self and non-self, which is wrongly construed as self. But this Atma, the metaphysical entity, is avikari, immutable. And therefore, Arjuna is told here that you are sorrowing about that your grandsire, your uncles, your kith and kin, and etc. people would be slayed, will be killed by you being in battle. But then it is not something that can be killed, nor does it kill. The Atma neither kills nor gets killed. It is eternal. And therefore, what is cause for sorrow? Arjuna, in you, it is really baseless. So this is what the instruction that we can get as neophytes about the precepts of Gnana Yoga, the subject matter of Gnana Yoga. And Bhagavad Gita gives us the first dose of it in the second chapter in the verses just now quoted. So, once this philosophy is deeply rooted about oneself, that I am immutable, I am eternal, I am not body, I am not mind, I am not breath, I am not man, woman, young, old, etc., etc., then the life has different tracks for trading. And those are the tracks of Gnana Yoga. Then the life is completely different when you are sufficiently under the gravity of precepts of Gnana Yoga. So, that is what is Gnana Yoga, which tells us about our own self. Atma Gnana is Gnana Yoga. This can be a brief kind of definition. Knowledge about the self is Gnana Yoga. So, Atma Swarupam. To pursue the Atma Swarupam, to know the Atma Swarupam, to come under the knowledge of Atma Swarupam is what is the Gnana Yogi is. So he looks at himself, Gnana Yogi looks at himself as merely an Atma. So there is no caste, class, creed, gender, status, genetic background, genealogical background, ancestral background, and there is nothing like the Ucha Nicha, superior, inferior. So that's how the self is. There is nothing like the Atma being of a gender, masculine or feminine. Atma doesn't have all that. It is the cover, the embodiment, the clothing over the Atma, which will have all that. The clothing is in the form of body. So there will be feminine body, masculine body, feminine mind, masculine mind, but the Atma is transcendent principle. Now, this philosophical very idea, notion definitely has governance over the conduct of life. And therefore, the Gnana Yogi understands that essentially I am not either delightful or not am I sorrowed. It is my mind which is sorrowed and delighted. What is young and old is my body and my mind. It is not me who is young or old, because Atma is ageless. I don't have any particular dharma or the faith, belief. So, therefore, many problems of life find solution by Gnana Yogic precepts. If we think that we are man or we are woman, we have certain problems to face. Are we really that, what we think about? And the best example given is that the sleep state of consciousness, nidra avastha. We do all exist in nidra avastha. It is not that we cease to exist when we are fast asleep. We are very much there. Then how are we in sleep? We are not man, woman, young, old, strong, weak, mad, intelligent, wise, unwise, sorrowed, delightful. None of such states are there in dormant state of consciousness. All these things are characteristically there in awakeful state of consciousness. So we should know about three states of consciousness. We are in Jagrata Avastha, then what are we? Then we are in Swapna Avastha, what are we? We are in Nidra Avastha too, then what are we? So in Nidra Avastha is characteristically different, that we do not have all these delimiting factors. We do not have body, mind, etc. while we are fast asleep. And that's a unique state. So how do I exist when I do not have any delimitation by way of caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature, condition, etc., etc. I do exist despite all that. And I want to exist that way at least once in a day. That means it's a state that everyone really cherishes. Once, at least in a day, we must transcend our physicality. We must transcend our mentality, physicality, our phenomenal existence, which is always characterized by caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature, etc. So we want to have that transcendent state every day, at least once. So understand how Gnana Yoga is an essential aspect. So the point is, Gnana Yoga is Atma Gnana. Subject matter of it is Atma Gnana, one's own essential state, quintessential state. In our awakeful state, we are never at all closer. We are far away from our essential state and quintessential state, and therefore we have this dictum that I am man or woman or young or old or strong or weak or healthy or unhealthy or wise or unwise or intelligent or stupid, etc., etc., or rich or poor, etc. What is rich and poor is not Atma. What is man and woman is not Atma. What is young or old is not Atma. It is our embodiment and not embodied. So, all those gravities which are influencing us, personal gravity, family gravity, social gravity, global gravity, all these gravities are influencing us in our awakeful state. And we are free from all these shackles in our dreamless sleep. And Gnana Yogi is close to these states, which are stateless states, even while he is awakeful. The other thing is that all that we do, all that we know is what we know, and all that we do is what we do. So in Bhagavad Gita, again in the 5th chapter, verses 8 and 9, it tells us something more about ourselves. Otherwise, we think that I know, I do not know, I do this, I don't do this, I did this, I did not do this, I will be doing this, I will not be doing that. So the doership and knowership is characteristic to our understanding of ourselves, which is bereft of reality. What is the reality? So the Bhagavad Gita in the 5th chapter tells us, Na eva kinchit karomi ityukto manye tattvavit. The tattvavit, the gnani, he knows what? I do not do anything, not even slightest. I do not do anything. So naiva kinchit karomi ityukto manyet tattvavit. Now what is this activity? Pashyan shunman sprushyan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan pralapan visujan grunhan unmishan nimishin napi indriyani indriyartheshu varatante iti dharayan. Wonderful passage from Bhagavad Gita. So he says, I do not do anything, not even which is so natural and incessant. I do not see anything, Pashyan. I do not hear anything, Shrunvan. I do not touch anything, Sprushyan. I do not smell anything, Jigran. I do not eat anything, Ashnan. I do not move and go here and there, Gachan. So, see, even these natural activities, activities such as right from breathing to various activities which we carry out in our wakeful state. What is a wakeful state? All these things will be actualized, and we will be hectically, incessantly doing those in our wakeful state. Nor I sleep, swapan. The what sleeps is not Atma, but we know that we sleep. We sleep, but our Atma doesn't sleep. It has no states. We breathe, Atma doesn't breathe. We breathe because of Atma. It is not Atma which breathes. We breathe because of Atma. So pralapan, visujan, grunhan, unmishan, nimishan api, all kinds of these activities, even flickering of the eyelids, which is very important condition of animation. So nothing of that sort is done by me. It is my body organs and mind organs which interact within themselves and their objects. My eyes are seeing. It is not that I am the seer. The eyes are seeing. I am the substrate of all seeing. I am the substrate of all hearing. I don't hear. I don't see. So this is a metaphysical understanding about the Atma, which comes in 5th chapter. So that's how the Bhagavad Gita will give us about the gnana yoga precepts. And it sums up beautifully, metaphorically, in a verse, 2nd chapter, verse 69. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. So, metaphor, wonderful description here. That what is animation, a wakeful state, is the sleepy state for a yogi. What is sleep for us is a wakeful state for a yogi. So, Gnana Yogi is in opposite condition to we mortals. What is day for us is night for him. What is night for us is day for him. What is activity for us is inactivity for him. What is inactivity for us is activity for him. What we do, he doesn't do. What he does, we don't do. So it's a metaphorical description that comes in Bhagavad Gita by way of Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasya Jagrati Sanyami. So, this metaphor should be understood, which will tell us that we are going in opposite direction of Gnana Yoga and Gnana Yogi. The Gnana Yogi is going in opposite direction to us. This is the difference between you and me and mortals on one hand and Gnana Yogis on the other hand. So where we have pravrutti, yogi has a nivrutti. Where we have nivrutti, Gnana Yogi has a pravrutti. What we do, he doesn't do. What he does, we do not do. What is engagement for us is disengagement for him. And what is disengagement for him is engagement for us. So there is a lot of poetry in this verse and we need to really understand it deeply. So, the Gnana Yogis then you can be characterizing in the great acharyas such as Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Vallabhacharya, Shukamahamuni, Ashtavakra, Vamadeva, Vasishtha Yagnevalkya. So these are personified Gnana Yogis. If you understand their life, we will understand what Gnana Yogi is. Then Bhagavad Gita also tries to portray the Gnana Yogi and Gnana Yoga. In the second chapter again, the verses 17, 18, 19 are worth citing. Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyavasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati antavanta ime deha nityasya ukta sharirinaha anashinaha apramesha tasmat yuddhasva bharata ya enam veti hantaram ya cha enam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitaha nayam hantina hanyate. So these are all our ideas about ourselves, that I do such certain things, I don't do certain things. If I do certain things, I am a human being and I need to do therefore. If I don't do certain things and should not be doing certain things, I should not do, then I will be a human being. So, on a human plane, we try to identify the do's and don'ts. Then we have concept of what is permanent, what is impermanent. Like often it is said that we build our own house and then we say, now I have a permanent house. But how laughable is that when you yourself are not permanent? How can you have a permanent house, your house? And this kind of confusion that had dawned in Arjuna's mind, and therefore he started reacting and behaving in a way that we see in the first chapter. It is because of lack of essential knowledge about realities. So what was unreal was considered as real, and what was real was considered as unreal. And therefore he was in a predicament, he was in a dilemma, which he wonderfully expresses in the first chapter, his predicament. And then Krishna gives him solution to help him come out of the predicament, confusion, oscillations. And therefore Krishna says, Tasmad yuddhasva bharata. Because Arjuna wanted to flee away from battle, thinking that this is something which is involving a lot of killing. I will be killing and they will be killed. There will be a killer and there will be killed. And that was the predicament for him, and he wanted to flee from the site of battle. So he instructs, one who kills is not Atma. One which is killed is not Atma. One who thinks that Atma is killed or Atma is killer doesn't know what Atma is. So, such precepts which have come in Upanishads are very basic and fundamental precepts for understanding Karma Yoga. I'm saying Gnana Yoga. That I am not the doer, I am not the endurer, I am not the knower. Essentially, although I know, I endure, I do, I am not the doer in true sense of the term. And then this yogi has a unique kind of conduct, which is explained again in Bhagavad Gita, which characterizes, it's a caricature of Gnana Yogi. Yas sarvatra anabhisneha tat tat prapya shubha shubham na abhinandati na dveshti tasya prajna pratisthita. So he is the Gnana Yoga, the prajna. So one who is having no attachment anywhere, no bias, no gravity, no attachment anywhere. He is not bothered about attaining auspicious or inauspicious coming his way. Na abhinandati na dveshti. He is neither delighted nor sorrowed, nor aversive or in aversion. He is one who has the gnana. Yada samvrate cha ayam kurma angani eva sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhya tasya prajna pratisthita. Who is in firm belief and understanding that I am like kurma, a turtle which has drawn all the organs within. And if there is any activity, it is indriyas working in their own objects. Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspruha. So when sorrow comes his way, he is anudvignamanaha, he is not agitated. And when sukha, pleasure, delight comes his way, he is without any spruha, without any thirst. So beautiful description of the sthita prajna or the prajnayavanta, that is the gnana yogi. So basic characteristic of gnana yogi is dukkeshu anudvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspruha vitaraga bhaya krodha sthitadi muni uchyate. Again, that passage in the second chapter of Sthita Prajna Yogi. So, the Gnana Yogi has been characterized. Elsewhere, again, is characterized. In the 13th chapter, Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, Ahimsa, Kshanti, Arjavam, Acharyopasanam, Shaucham, Sthaiyam, Atma Vinigraha. Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha-dosha anudarshanam asaktir anabhishvanga putradara gruhadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtu upattishu मयि च अनन्य योगेन भक्ति अव्यभिचारिणी विवक्त देश सेवित्वम arati janasamsadi. So the 13th chapter has this description where amanitvam, we are all affected by honor, dishonor. When we get honor, we get air in our head. When we are insulted, offended, then we know what happens to our minds. Either it becomes punctured or it raises the hood like cobra. We get angry, exasperated. But all that is not there for a gnani. And he is always in ahimsa, shanti, arjavam. Then he is also engaged in acharyopasanam. This is a sadhaka in gnana yoga. What is paramount is acharyopasanam. He is always in shaucham, every kind of purity. Stairyam atma vinigraha. He is well restrained. He has vairagya for indriyarthas. He has all vairagya for objects of senses. He doesn't go behind the objects of senses. So there is that vairagya. Anahankara evam. So he is also anahankari. He doesn't have this self-esteem which can be easily dented. So he knows that this body is fraught with janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkham. Having this body, you cannot escape all these birth, death, decay, disease and sorrow. You can't escape. So he knows that this is only to the body. This is not to me. Asakti anabhishvanga putradara grahadishu. He is not attached to what we call as our men, our people, kith and kin. He is equal to everyone. Nityam samachittatvam ishtanishta upattishu. He is unalloyed, in unalloyed state, non-oscillating state, always in samachitta, equilibrium of mind. And he is always in bhakti. That's how gnana yogi is described. So, the gnana yoga tells us about what is eternal, what is ephemeral, who is really me and what is really not me. So there are lots of disillusionments about nitya, nitya, sat, asat, atma, anatma, sukha, dukkha, because we all have illusions about all this. And we are deluded in the world because of this misconceptions. So the gnana yoga tries to efface all these misconceptions. That is what the gnana yoga is and what gnana yogi is. So to some extent, I try to give you some idea. So a Kriya yogi is a gnana yogi. He lives these precepts. He lives by these precepts. These precepts are deeply rooted in him. And they are giving him the navigatory processes in the life and negotiations in life. So I gave you very basic idea about gnana yoga and gnana yogi. But he is not just that. He is also karma yogi. He is also in karma yoga. He is accomplished in karma yoga and he is karma yogi. He is also a accomplished dhyana yogi, accomplished in dhyana yoga. He is also accomplished in bhakti yoga and is accomplished bhakti yogi. So we have only seen 1/4 of Kriya yogi so far by considering gnana yoga, gnana yogi. Now we need to proceed to understand karma yoga and karma yogi, to have little more understanding about Kriya yogi. We have only partial understanding of Kriyayoga and Kriyayogi. So we'll proceed to that to understand Karma Yoga and Karma Yogi, which he is. But that is for next time. Namaskar, all of you.